This is LSAT Prep Test 154, Section 3, Passage 1. This is about Great Zimbabwe and what actually made it powerful. It's a fairly easy passage, but there's one trap that catches a lot of students, and I'm going to get to that. Now, this is a social science passage. The author here is picking a fight with the standard scholarly explanation. The main point is that scholars credit gold for Great Zimbabwe's success, but the author says they've got it backwards and it was actually cattle. Now, the paragraph you've got to care the most about is paragraph 2. That is where the entire argument is, but I'll walk you through how we get there. Now, paragraph 1 is a setup with a twist at the end. You get the background first. Great Zimbabwe was powerful, politically centralized, and wealthy enough to import luxury goods from overseas. Then you get the scholarly explanation. All of that came from controlling gold on that plateau and exporting it to the coast. Sounds pretty solid, but that is the trap, because right at the very end of the paragraph, the author drops the however and says actually, it's the agricultural system that matters the most. And that one sentence is the entire thesis of the passage. If you were reading it on autopilot, you probably treated paragraph 1 as pure background, but it's not. The author just told you their entire position, so go back and find the word however if you missed it the first time. Now, paragraph 2 is pretty long, and every sentence in it is doing real work. Don't skim this one. The author needs to convince you that a cattle economy wasn't just a different food source, it was the thing that created Great Zimbabwe's entire political structure. And the way the argument works is like a chain. It starts with a problem. The city had maybe 10,000 people, and that is huge for this region and time period. Normal crop farming couldn't support that. The soil needed long breaks between plantings. You couldn't haul grain because there were no carts or draft animals, and you couldn't stockpile it either. And so those are 3 different reasons why crops fail as an explanation. Each one closes a door, and then the author opens the only door left, cattle. But here's where it gets good. The cattle economy was not simple. Herds needed massive grazing land. They had to move seasonally, higher ground in summer, lower ground in winter, because of disease from the tsetse fly. Now, you can't run an operation like that without serious coordination, and serious coordination means centralized control, which means a ruling class, which means the cattle end up belonging to that ruling class. So you see here how each step forces the next one. That is the author's entire opinion. That's their argument. Cows don't just feed people, cows create kings. Now, you want to read paragraph 2 slowly. If you rush it, you're going to remember the facts but miss the chain, and the chain is what the questions are going to ask you about. Now, paragraph 3 does 2 things, and the second one is sneaky. First, it shows how deep the ruling class's control went. Ordinary people only got cattle as a gift from royalty. Cattle were required for marriage contracts, so the royal class had power over the most basic parts of daily life. That part is pretty straightforward. The sneaky part comes at the end. The passage circles back to gold, and what the author does here is brilliant. The author doesn't say gold mining didn't happen. The author says gold mining only happened because of cattle. The actual mining was dangerous, the yields were small, and the work wasn't worth it on its own. Royalty had to offer cattle to get laborers to do it, and so the thing scholars point to as the cause of Great Zimbabwe's power was actually a product of the cattle system. Now, that is the key move. Gold doesn't explain cattle. Cattle explains gold. The author flips the cause and effect. Now, here is the trap. A lot of students walk away from this passage thinking the author is saying gold didn't matter, but that's not it. The author is saying gold was real, but secondary. It depended on something deeper. If you pick a choice that says the author dismisses gold mining or thinks it was unimportant, that's too strong. The author's opinion is about what came first and what made everything else possible. Now, the other mistake students make here is reading this as a description, like it's just a tour of a nation's economy. This is an argument with a clear structure. Here's what people think, here's why they're wrong, and here's what actually explains it. If you miss the core of the argument, every question's going to be harder. Now, before you go to the questions, you want to check yourself on 3 things. First, can you explain why the author spends so much time on why crop farming failed? Second, can you trace the chain from cattle to political power in your own words? And third, why does the author bring gold back at the very end instead of dropping it after paragraph 1?